Whenever I start a challenge, what I like to do is set aside a fixed hour of the day for the challenge. This way, I know that I am going to be accountable, as well as I'm not going to mix in any meetings, any other plans, or any other events at that fixed time. So it makes my process a lot more easier, and I really enjoy spending that 1 hour of that day for that challenge. So we are on day 3. Let's get ready with our materials. So I've got my beautiful paper, got some of my brushes. Let's keep them ready. Get our paints out. And I also like to have water for me to use during the challenge. Now that we have our materials, we can get started. After 2 amazing days, let's go into color mixing for day 3. Today we are going to be mixing some colors that we've mixed before, like the orange. Orange can be mixed by using 2 parts or more of yellow and 1 part of red. Make sure to take little yellow at a time and mix before adding more yellow. So this way you know what orange is being mixed. So you can see I added enough yellow and I'm happy with the mix. I like the color. It's a light orange shade, exactly what I was looking for. Can add a little bit of red. I want a little bit brighter orange. And I think I'm happy with this. It's gonna work perfectly well for my painting today. The next color that we will be mixing is forest green. This is basically 1 part yellow and 2 parts blue. You might have to add more yellow, but basically we want to get more of a bluish green color. You can see I'm adding blue as I mix to make sure that I get the right shade. The final color is eggplant, where we are using 2 parts of blue and 1 part of red. This is a color that I find is very hard to get in the market. It is not a color that is easily available, so I end up mixing it every time. So I'm very used to always mixing my blue and red to get this color. Let's begin with day 3 of our challenge. I've taken my A5 sheet and in the center I'm going to be painting our main focus flower. I'm starting off with using eggplant by adding some very random dots in the form of a circle for the center of the flower. Now load up your brush with orange and add dots around the circle. On one side I have made sure that they are close to the circle, while on the other side I've made sure that they're further away. Now using yellow, let's add more dots. So drag your brush from the center to the middle or from outwards to the center. You can see the blend of colors as the paints mix. I love how multicolored it looks with that eggplant, the yellows, the oranges. Now let's allow this to dry. Once it is dry, I'm gonna switch to my detailer brush. Now loading this brush up with orange or yellow to add outlines to our flower. So I'm starting with adding some texture dots along the center circle. Now we can add some outlines to the petals. I'm using this as a way to really define each petal so that it really comes together. You can play around with adding some deep lines, making it very broken and giving it a more artistic look. I make sure to go through each petal one at a time. Now let's add a set of flowers to the top left central position, right next to our existing main flower. Using red, I'm doing straight lines in the form of a circle. I'm also adding in these lines. You can see how I'm doing it half, not doing a full circle, but just 1/4 of a circle. You're gonna understand what I'm gonna do with this as I paint. Now, let's take a round brush of size 4, loading it up with orange color. We can paint some stunning heart-shaped petals. I like adding a little bit of a wave to the petal edge to give it that heart-shaped look. Now, because we used red in the center, just by gently using clear water or touching it to the center, that red color immediately blends in. So you end up with this multicolored flower. Now that we've done a full flower, for a half flower, simply add petals just along half of the shape. So we're not doing it all around, just half. And this gives the effect of a half flower, basically a flower viewed in a different angle. Let's add another one similar to this, playing around with pulling the color from the center and using orange to give it that splash of color. Now let's use eggplant and add multiple circles to paint multiple flowers near our main flower. I'm going to be using clear water and pulling the color of this. You can see how it became very dark, so I'm washing my brush again and doing the same thing. If it becomes too muddy, I'll try to make sure that I don't touch that center too much, just a little bit so that the color comes through. In this case, I'm using a more rounded petal to give it a little bit of a different look to the flowers that we had already painted. You can see that. I'm trying not to go over it too many times. Just making sure that I get that circle for the edge of the petal. Now using clear water again, pulling through that paint from the center of the circle. You can even do some of the petals that do not touch the center, just to avoid too much of that color coming through. I'm going to do the same thing on the top, adding these rounded circular petals and washing out my brush when it gets loaded with color. And then again starting fresh by pulling the color from the center. Now using eggplant, let's add some half flowers. You can see how I just added 2 petals, and that shows a half or an incomplete flower. Now let's use our green. So we're gonna use our green to complete the leaves for the orange set. What I'm gonna do is use two different types of leaves so that it creates a little bit of interest. So for the orange, I'm gonna switch to my detailer brush so that it's a little bit more easier to paint out these stem lines. Once I've connected these to the orange flower, I can paint a lovely leaf to complement the flower. Now let's switch leaves. I'm using the same thin detailer brush, and with the green I'm connecting the existing flowers together. For this I'm going to be using round leaves. So let's do a center and we can do rounded leaves. These are much more smaller in size to what we had done before compared to the previous leaves, and this is going to give it proportion. Moving on to the top, adding some loose leaves like below. Can add a stem of leaves, all using the same rounded leaf shape. Adding another one of those rounded leaves, starting from the orange flower. And there you go. Our flower, our painting is almost complete. At this point, we can add some splatters. The splatters just bring together the painting and give it a lot of texture. And so using our eggplant, we can gently splatter around the painting. It is day 3 and we have completed this stunning painting. As always, make sure to share your project on the Femvisionary Challenge hashtag to your fellow participants. And see you again for day 4.